Hello, my name is Ted Hayes, and I'm a co-founder of Pythias Cyber. Glad you're here today. With me is one of my fellow co-founders.
Hi, I'm Brendan Hemingway, and my focus is on IT infrastructure.
Thanks, Brendan. So that leads me to our topic for today. My focus is on the behavioral aspects of cybersecurity. Behavioral cybersecurity is an integral part of doing cybersecurity in any organization. And what we want to do in this video is discuss briefly for investors or managers who might want to be taking a look at them at their own operations or maybe a competitor's operations, how could they think about ransomware? What is the value for an investor or a manager looking to make an acquisition, do a merger, when you're thinking about prevention versus curing it? So I'm going to start with some behavioral cybersecurity thoughts and then segue over to Brendan. My thoughts about this are that ransomware has been going on for a long time. Why is that? Because it's cheap and it's easy, and every now and then it works. And remember, it doesn't have to be every hundredth person or every thousandth person, given the cost of doing a ransomware attack and utilization of advanced technology such as artificial intelligence. You don't even have to be awake to do a ransomware attack. It's about finding the right person, or if you will, the wrong person, who's going to engage with that bot or with that link or answer that phone call or something that gets you and your company into trouble because now you have invited in to your systems people who shouldn't have access to your systems. In previous blog posts or conversations, we talked about insider threats. So those are people who already have access to your systems. They should have access, and then they do nefarious things for their own purposes. But with a ransomware attack, there are two differences. First of all, you've got somebody or an entity who's coming into your system who should not have access, and that entity then denies your people, your operations, the opportunity to access its data, do its function, sell stuff until there is money paid to unlock the system. Well, that is an easy peasy description, and unfortunately, uh, it's all too readily recognizable. Uh, the part that makes it problematic from a behavioral cybersecurity perspective is that, painful as it is to say this, it indicates that there wasn't enough thought given to managing the risk of that ransomware attack. You know it's going to happen. You know that you're going to be a target. So there is some risk. How did you manage that risk? It's not a matter of responding. You have to respond. But what we want to talk with investors and managers about is anticipating and preparing your people and your systems to deal with that problem before it becomes a denial of service attack and you're out money. So part of that is to understand where your weak links are. Why would your people click on links? What type of access do those people have to the outside? So they deal with customers, they deal with um, other organizations. Is this a B2B type of situation? So presumably your people are creating an opportunity to be attacked. Have you figured out what those opportunities are? What's the most likely opportunity? How many times have you been attacked in the last, let's say, quarter? What happened when you were attacked? What types of systems are more susceptible and how readily uh, corruptible are they in this type of attack? What type of training have you done for people? It's not good enough to say don't click on the link, don't do this, because we all know just telling people to not do something is not effective because they'll do it anyway, and you didn't tell them what to do instead. That's the key. So instead of don't training, want to get to do training. So if you're faced with a link, a suspicious marketing email or something, a phone call, what do you do? It's not what you don't do, it's what do you do? So that's another piece of that risk management. Then I guess a third part, and this does segue into Brendan's area, is how do your systems people deal with this type of attack? What do they do when there is a ransomware attack, um, when systems are being captured and held for ransom? And I do want to mention before we have this conversation that we're not offering legal advice. So we got the behavioral part, which is what to do, anticipating it from a risk management perspective. And now Brendan's going to talk to us about the systems perspective.
Yeah, let's talk about Cure. And again, this video is aimed at investors or mergers and acquisitions people. And our hope here is to give you a chance to be a little more sophisticated when you assess an organization because everybody looks at the balance sheet, everybody looks at normal financial activity, but very few people understand what to ask about an IT operation. So the reason that ransomware is an interesting case, curing it for system administration, is ransomware is, from our perspective, in the bowels of the organization, a very strange data recovery issue. And the classic reasons that you need to recover data used to be human error was always the big one. And the good news is that human beings are relatively slow and relatively bad at destroying things. So recovering from human error when someone deletes something they shouldn't have or edits something they shouldn't have is relatively painless because they probably only have touched a few things and they probably remember more or less when they touched them and you can go back to a backup and restore them. And that's, specific. You know basically what you're looking at. And then in the bad old days before ransomware, the other big evil data recovery issue is catastrophic hardware failure. Might be because of a flood, might be because of a power problem, might be in the bad old days we had head crashes, might be because your hardware did just fail, it got old. And that's about restoring a large amount of data without any particular targeting for it. And ransomware is weirdly in the middle. You either have to restore a ton of data quickly or lose all the work you did since your last backup, or unlike disaster, you have this very bizarre option that, well, bizarre from our perspective, and unfortunately increasingly normal from a business perspective. You have the option of buying a key and then poof, presto, all your data comes back. And the tricky, icky, sticky part is that those three data recovery scenarios are not compatible. Strategies that work well for any one of them work badly for the other two. And I give you a quick example. An obvious way, not obvious, a classic way to deal with ransomware is to have a second shadow system that gets updated every however, with every transaction. So it's only a few fractions of a second behind the main system. And then when the main system's computer host gets corrupted and it and the data gets encrypted, the second system is unaffected. It just gets legitimate data updates. It doesn't get the other updates. And so you can be back in business in minutes. But that strategy is a terrible way to deal with human error because a few microseconds after the human has done something terrible to your production system, your shadow system will faithfully reproduce that terrible unwanted deletion. So there isn't a one size fits all strategy here. There isn't a single way to fix this. You have to make choices. You either have to go hybrid and back things up a lot of different ways, which gets us into the dreaded time and money calculation. You either spend a lot of money so that restoring is fast, or you spend less money and then restoring takes a long time. So you should be asking an acquisition target, how do you recover data? Because that will tell you a bunch of things. If they say we've highly optimized for minimal downtime, and we don't care about human error, they probably got hammered by uh, ransomware because that's not a natural backup choice. If they say, you know what, we handled disasters by going to our offsite backup, and it takes hours to do it, maybe a day. But if you're recovering from a disaster, if there's been a hurricane or a flood or something, it's not that big a deal. Then they probably haven't ever thought about ransomware because that's a terrible ransomware strategy, anti-ransomware strategy. So here's a question you can ask them that will open the doors to give you some sense of what they've thought about and how good they are at thinking about things. Because backup and restore, however dull it is at cocktail parties, is a operational task that has significant cybersecurity implications. And if they say to you, well, in this context, our restore strategy is in the cybersecurity context, it's anti-ransomware. In the anti-disaster cover, it's this. And if somebody makes a mistake, it's that. Then you're talking to a sophisticated, mature organization that values uptime and values its data. And just the same way you would say, how do you guys do managing the balances in your bank account? And you might be horrified if they said, well, it's up, it's down. Sometimes there's too little, sometimes there's too much. Yet no one seems to ask the same questions about data management. So if you're interested in in acquisition targets and knowing how well they're run in the data center, then this is a innocuous, non-threatening way to find that out. Say, hey, how do you guys recover data? And let them tell you what kind of scenarios they support and how they support them. And if they say, we do the usual stuff, you probably don't want to buy them.
There's a lot to think about, and we hope that this video conversation has given you some thoughts as an investor or a manager looking to make an acquisition about how you could assess the risk management tolerance and capacity of a prospect that you're looking at. There's no one answer. It isn't simple. I guess what I would say is that these attacks are going to get more and more sophisticated. Um, Events, as we've seen from climate change, are getting worse and worse. So if you're not thinking about disaster recovery, recovery from ransomware attacks as an organization, as an investor, or someone looking to make an acquisition, it's probably got to be weighing on your decision about that organization. But give it a thought. Contact us here at pythiacyber.com. We'd love to talk to you some more about it and hope to hear from you. Thanks a lot.
Why?